Do you
We'll
see
go on from
do you
there.
see any difference with AEW?
Do I
Something.
see a difference? Oh
What do
my
you
God,
notice?
Miro,
Yes, that's what I mean.
it's it's um it's funny because I talked to Jericho a little bit about it. Because Jericho and I have been a lot of places together and been through a lot of different organizations. And when I got to AEW, I kept waiting for that pressure to drop, that shoe to drop, that that environment of just that weight that you carry when you're working
Yeah, right.
elsewhere. And it's not, the shoe's not going to drop. Like everybody is supportive. Like um, the boss actually thanks you for your time and thanks you for your effort, and truly wants your opinions and your ideas. And it's just a different atmosphere altogether. Because I mean, we've worked some days at AEW that I would have flipped my friggin' biscuit if I worked those days somewhere else. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like you get there too, and you're leaving at 3:45 in the morning. But you're leaving happy because you had fun at work, you had fun watching the matches, you had fun even doing nothing. It's just a good environment. It's not that Shark Tank of an environment, if that
right.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
on one hand, that Shark Tank environment, really, I learned a lot and it prepared me to be successful. So right now, for me, there is no pressure at all. Because if I can be
100%.
successful in that environment, I can be successful anywhere. And that's one
100%.
thing that I can say about coming from there. Um, it taught you how to be a star. That's for sure.
And I think that's his biggest thing that he preaches, because there's not this job, the previous job, is gonna prepare you for any other job. Because one of their saying is you're gonna, and excuse my language, learn how to eat shit and like it, and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
this
yeah.
is his motto. This is his saying, and he lives by it. And
He
we
lives by it. Yeah.
and we got better. He's doing it too. It's not like we all did it, but we got better from it, and now we get and carry that experience somewhere else, but just
Well,
carry
we
it in
get
a
to carry
different
that
way.
experience somewhere else, but the pressure, we don't feel the pressure that others feel. You know what I mean? For us, the chains are off, and I mean, I'm chomping at the bit. Um, I want to get in the ring, and I've already had matches in my head with a bunch of different guys at AEW and who I'd like to start angles with and stuff like that.
Mm,
But again, there's no rush, there's no pressure. You know,
that's
um,
right.
I think that was the difference where you and I came from. You and I came from a place where it didn't matter what you did last week. It's what are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? Like, how are you proving your worth, so to speak?
Mm,
And then after you put in your time, you know, uh, I can definitely see where my worth is valuable. Um, just in the conversations I'm having with some of the younger talent, some of the bigger guys, and even some of the gals, helping them understand, you know, using their backgrounds and stuff that they've been through, and the things that they fought to make it to this level, and how to emphasize that and use it. You know,
yeah.
I've kind of gone through the school of hard knocks and had some great teachers, some great mentors between Arn Anderson, which I'm very fortunate and lucky to get to work with Arn here at AEW. I'm glad to see
Mm,
his face around. But the time I spent with Undertaker and Kane, and working with those guys, and Cena and Kurt Angle, and all the different guys that I've got a chance to work with over the years, all the different characters, from JBL. Um, there's something that I've learned in the past 20 years from everybody that I've been around, and now to have the opportunity to really share some of that experience in a way that I think um, our talent at AEW can process it and understand it and take it and run with it and make it their own. That's
yeah.
the main thing. I don't want them to go out there and do stuff just because I said to do it. I want them to understand what I'm telling them so they can apply it and make it their own. You know,
Yeah.
um, and that's the difference. You can tell somebody to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they can go out and do it. And then they're a robot. They're an automaton. It's micromanaged. Um, you want them to understand why they're doing it and when they feel it. And if they
Yeah.
feel it, they'll get better. And once they start feeling it, then they're going to have fun.
Because
You
it's like
know,
bad
you know
acting.
how,
It's like you
yeah, it
as
is
a
like
bad
bad
actor,
acting. Yeah.
we can all say the words, But if you don't have the
Right.
emotion or the meaning behind it, you're just saying words on a piece of paper, and
Yeah, if
that's
you
not.
don't understand your
Yeah.
motivation and the character's motivation in the scene, what is the character trying to get across to the audience in the story, you know? And I think um, the talent that we have there, because we have so much unique talent in AEW, and there's so many young people and so many people that don't have the TV experience that we have, or some of the pay per view experiences that we've had. Um, but at the same time, that's good because there's a freshness to it. There's an authenticity about it where it hasn't been micromanaged. It hasn't been processed. It hasn't gone through that factory. You know what I mean? It still has a real un uncut feel to it that I enjoy. You know, I see a lot of potential with what we have.
Who do you think throughout your career have you learned the most from?
Who have I learned the most from?
Yes. Because you say you work with so many legends, and you have all of them Hall of
Yeah,
Famers, including you.
I think the guy that probably beat it in my skull the most was probably Undertaker.
Mm.
Um, there was one guy that I always really pushed really hard to make sure that um, I got his respect. You know,
Mm.
and he didn't give it easily. Not for me. You know, I've told the stories before. I would always try to, and I would screw up in matches and just do dumb shit that you do just because your mind's not there yet, you know. And I remember he'd have that one crooked finger, and he would do that when he would call me over. That the tendons in his fingers have all been stepped on and torn over the years, you know. He's the epitome of grizzled, and you know, he'd get so mad he'd start pulling on that goatee. Uh, Back in the day, and I would just shake my head, like, you know. But when it got to a point where I was able to start thinking in the ring before I screwed up, and start and really absorb who I was, I learned a lot from Stone Cold too. Actually, believe it or not, Steve Austin. And I didn't really get to interact with Steve Austin that much. I mean, we're good buds and all, but I learned a lot about just uh, being business with Steve Austin.
Mm.
Um, that I never understood, I think, for the longest time. I mean, I've heard Hogan say it, and I've learned a lot from Hogan and Savage and Flair, and I've had some great people in my life, but understanding really what I brought to the table, I learned from Steve. You know, Steve Austin's a guy that really made it click in my head, um, that I have to do me. And if I'm not doing me, then I'm not doing business. So,
Mm.
and that, you know, that really changed my career a lot. Just spend that time that I spent working with Steve. Uh, we laugh about it now, but you know, it was pulling teeth for a long time. I
See,
think the biggest thing that Steve gave me was, we had serious talk one night, was about consistency. You know, because you'd have one good match, you'd work with a guy that you could trust or that you had a good relationship with, and that guy would go out and then he would, you know, sell you accordingly, and you would have all these things lined up, and you would tell this story, and it'd be a really good match.
mm.
And then you would start over in a new program with somebody that you weren't that familiar with, and you know, you would stink the friggin' joint out. You know, and it's like, you know, the big thing was getting that consistency, and part of getting that consistency
Mm.
is knowing who you are as a talent and what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And in some situations, you know, my talent was I had to be a giant,
Mm.
and as long as I was a giant, then the rest fell in place. You know, I'm not going to be fortunate enough to have 5-star matches like a Kenny Omega or a Chris Jericho. I'm not going to have that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have character driven, story driven matches where I'm a monster. And that's what I do. I'm a giant. And as long as I'm doing that, then we'll get the story across. And sometimes for me, earlier in my career, there was always a lot of dead space and stuff I was doing because I was waiting for someone else
Mm.
to execute, you
Mm.
know, and I had to learn that if they're not there, tough shit. You
Mm.
know, I have to be moving. I have to always be moving forward. I have to be on the move. Like Undertaker early in his career, you know, like guys would go through so much just to get Taker to take a bump and sell. And then once Taker sat up, it started all over again. You know, it was like you know, and Taker would blow guys sky high because Taker made them earn everything that they got.
Yeah.
And then when I learned that, I'm doing people a disservice by not making them earn it.
Mm.
So once all that came into play, it started being a lot more fun.
But
Less
see, all
stress.
these advices, they're not like particular, oh, you need to do a better punch or a better move, or it's all about psychology. It's all about mental
Right.
stuff and business stuff that it will just help you get better as a performer. And that's why I feel a
Right.
lot of things is lacking today. We focus a lot of these maneuvers instead of thinking about, hey man, how does this make sense?
Right. Well, that's the thing that, and I attribute this to. This is my own personal philosophy, whether it's right or not. It's just a common thing that I see. I see now that a lot of the younger talent, they work so hard to pop each other, you
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and they work hard to get as much shit in as possible in the shortest amount of time. Like if they lose 2 minutes of their match, they're not thinking about cutting anything out to tell a better story. They're trying to think of how they can go faster to get everything in, and that's just because they haven't got comfortable with themselves yet to understand that sometimes in a match you have to let your audience absorb what's happening.
Yeah.
And the analogy I use, and it's a little bit harsh, but I'm a little bit old school on things, so sometimes my methods are a little bit more uh, direct in teaching. By the time you drive down the road and you see an accident on the side of the road, a car is flipped over, you know, and you rubberneck and you look and you think, you say a prayer, you hope everyone in the vehicle is okay. Wow, that's a brutal accident. Your empathy is there, but 15 minutes down the road, you've forgotten about that accident. You're on to something else. Um, and I say now, think about that accident. If you're driving down the accident, if it's someone that's in that car, your mother, your sister, your daughter, somebody that you have an emotional connection to, it changes the complexity of that accident immediately,
Mm-hmm.
because then it immediately affects you. Wrestling is kind of nowhere near as dramatic, but it's kind of the same philosophy of making the fans emotionally invested. You have to keep that connection with the fans because the fans want to be part of the show. You look at all the people that have ever gotten over really huge, whether you look at The Rock or Stone Cold or anybody like that, they want to be a part of the show. Chris Jericho with the list, and Chris has done a great job of always keeping the fans a part of the show. Fans want to be a part of it. They want to chant for the baby face. They want to say the cool sayings. They want to see a comeback they recognize. They want to be a part of it. And sometimes when you go too fast, yes, they appreciate what you're doing. It's amazing athleticism. They have a reaction. But at the same time, just because you're getting a reaction doesn't mean it's the right reaction you're supposed to get. You want a reaction where you take them on a journey. And we all know that wrestling has a predetermined outcome, and it's a story and all these other ways of saying it. But the best matches have that ability to suspend that belief just for a second. Just for a minute second,
Not two,
you're
not
enjoying
three,
the journey. You're
not
not
four,
thinking about
not
whether or
five,
not that was
not
real
six,
or that connected,
not
or you
seven,
know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the part where we pull them in. That's when we suck them in. Like you look at this opening match on Dynamite this past week, where Kristen Cage and
Frankie
Frankie,
Kazarian.
just Kazarian, they just from the lockup right away.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most intense lockups in a story was told with a collar and elbow tie-up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Christian Cage, and we've known Christian forever, how good he is. And it's really nice to see him come out there, that match on Dynamite, and really just put on a clinic of how to tell a story. Because I sat up in the crowd with all the talent watching that match, and there were a bunch of younger talent around me. And I just spent probably 40 minutes flapping my gums about telling a story and making people get emotionally invested. And then Christian goes out and puts on this amazing story that the false finishes towards the end. People sitting in the crowd didn't know who was going to win or lose.
Mm.
That we suspended, Christian and Frankie suspended that that knowledge of, oh, we know who's going to win. Oh, this is a good finish. they had them sitting on the edge of their seats. They had them biting. And that's the
Yeah.
thing too, when you do false finishes in a match. One of my things that I try to stress to the younger guys too: if you're doing a false finish, treat it as a false finish. That's what we call it. It's not a transition spot to the next set of moves. It's a false finish. So make
Yeah.
sure you put that in the match where it gets the right reaction.
Yeah.
Treat it as a false finish. Hook the leg. Try to get a pinfall. So what if the guy kicks out on one if it's early in the match? But
Mm.
if you don't treat it like a real finish, the audience isn't going to grab it
Mm.
as hard. You know what I mean? You want to
Yeah.
make them bite. And I've said before in a lot of interviews is that's why Becky Lynch was always one of my favorites for years, even long before, you know, she took part in a historic main event. Becky told that story years ago in the ring, where every cover she told the story that she was working harder and more desperate to win every time. You could feel her not shift one gear, two gears, three gears, but she was shifting like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 gears, like really desperation, desperation. And even if she lost, you came away from that match respecting her because how hard she fought in that battle. You got emotionally invested in the battle she had,
Mm.
and I knew then years ago, like the landscape was changing.
Yeah.
People were going to start really respecting, our women's division and how they compete. And then you look at AEW with Thunder Rosa and Dr. Britt Baker.
Mm.
They had that hardcore match, and that was just
Well,
that was
she's a dentist.
unreal.
She's not a real doctor.
Well, I'm sure she's probably read a medical book more than you and I have, so we'll call it.
That is
You
true.
know, but you look at the match that they had, and there are two women that had an incredible hardcore match with the tables and the psychology and everything that went on there. They told a story of two gunslingers that went out there and hit each other with everything in the kitchen sink. And
Yeah.
that's a different type of psychology match. That's a hardcore match. That's what you expect. But I don't think anyone expected towards the end there who was going to win, who was going to
Right.
go over, what was going to happen. You thought there were going to be a lot of teases, like they dumped the thumbtacks out. There's just no way the girls were going into thumbtacks. They did.
They did.
I mean, that that commitment was super impressive to me. And they told a great story, and they went out and they set the bar pretty high. So the next group, male or female, that has a similar type match, that's going to be a bar that they're going to try to have to hook the audience that well and have people talking about that match
Yeah.
that well. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the part that I salute them to. Yes, the moves are impressive. Yes, they were physical. Yes, they were brutal, but they were able to pull a story out of that and tell a great story. And those are things that I love the most about our business is when we can tell the stories, whether it's a hardcore match, whether it's a match where you're getting, slamming each other into a bunch of video games.
Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did doing this just for you so you can be entertained. And maybe I can be entertained. Who knows? But if you do like, you know what you gotta do. Subscribe, like, deal, spread the rumors, call your friend, tell them, hey, Miro got another video. Do it right now. Stuff like that. Figure it out. Thank you. Goodbye.